Marcus Reeves wiped the grease from his hands as the emergency beacon screamed through his workshop's communication array. The sound cut through the gentle hum of his repair bay like a plasma cutter through hull plating. He'd been working on a freight hauler's engine for 3 days straight, but distress calls always took priority in the Outer Rim territories. The beacon's coordinates pointed to the Kepler Nebula, a dangerous region where space storms could tear apart even military vessels. Marcus grabbed his emergency kit and headed for his modified rescue ship, the Tinker's Hope. The vessel wasn't much to look at, cobbled together from salvaged parts and held together by his engineering genius, but it could navigate places that would destroy fancy corporate ships. As he entered the nebula's swirling gases, his sensors detected massive energy readings ahead. Through the cosmic fog emerged the hulking silhouette of an alien vessel, easily 10 times larger than anything humans had built. The ship's design was unlike anything in the galactic databases, organic curves mixed with crystalline structures that pulsed with dying light. The massive ship was sinking into the nebula's dense core, where gravitational forces would crush it completely. Marcus had maybe 30 minutes before the vessel was lost forever. His scanner showed multiple life signs aboard, but something else caught his attention. Deep in the ship's belly, a massive energy signature pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost like a heartbeat. Marcus docked with the alien vessel using his ship's universal coupling system, a device of his own creation that could interface with any known technology. The airlock hissed as he entered the alien ship, his portable atmosphere generator working overtime to maintain breathable air. The interior was a maze of corridors that seemed grown rather than built. Bioluminescent panels provided flickering light as the ship's systems failed one by one. Marcus followed his scanner toward the largest life sign, navigating through passages that curved and twisted like the inside of some massive creature. Emergency klaxons wailed in alien languages as he ran deeper into the dying ship. Water began flooding the lower levels, and Marcus realized the vessel had been badly damaged in some kind of battle. Blast marks scarred the walls, and in several places, the hull had been breached and hastily sealed. He found the source of the energy signature behind a massive door that looked more like a biological membrane than traditional metal. The barrier was sealed with multiple locking mechanisms that hummed with power. Marcus studied the alien technology for precious minutes before his engineering instincts kicked in. Every lock was designed to keep something inside, not to keep intruders out. Using his multi-tool, Marcus began bypassing the security systems. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, but all technology followed certain universal principles. Energy flowed in patterns, circuits completed loops, and every system had weak points that a clever engineer could exploit. As the last lock disengaged, the massive door iris opened with a sound like rushing wind. Beyond lay a cavernous chamber filled with swirling energy fields. And suspended in the center, held by crackling restraints, was a dragon. The creature was magnificent and terrible, easily 40 feet long with scales that shifted color like oil on water. Its eyes blazed with intelligence and fury as it struggled against the energy bonds that held it prisoner. This wasn't some primitive beast, but a sentient being of incredible power. Marcus stared in shock. Dragons were myths, stories told by ancient Earth cultures. Yet here was living proof that such creatures existed among the stars. The dragon's eyes fixed on him, and he felt a presence touch his mind, not invading but requesting entry. Images flooded his consciousness. The dragon's name was Pyraxis, and it had been captured by the alien ship's crew, the Zephyrians. They had intended to use the dragon's natural ability to navigate hyperspace without technological assistance, making it a living jump drive for their war fleet. The ship shuddered violently as another section collapsed under the nebula's pressure. Marcus had perhaps 10 minutes before the vessel imploded completely. He studied the restraint system, recognizing the energy patterns despite their alien origin. "I'm going to get you out of here," Marcus said aloud, though he wasn't sure if the dragon could understand human speech. The restraints were powered by the ship's main reactor, but Marcus identified the local control nodes. Using his plasma cutter, he began severing the energy conduits one by one. Each cut sent sparks flying and caused the dragon to convulse as the restraints fluctuated. With the final conduit severed, the energy fields collapsed. Pyraxis dropped to the chamber floor, weak from long imprisonment but very much alive. The dragon struggled to stand, its legs shaking from disuse. "Can you move?" Marcus asked urgently. We need to get to my ship now. The dragon's response came as images in his mind. Paraxis could fly but was weakened. It would need help reaching the docking bay. Marcus activated his emergency beacon, hoping his ship's automated systems would guide them through the maze of corridors. Supporting the dragon's massive weight was impossible, but Marcus found that Paraxis could lean against the walls and follow his lead. Together they navigated the collapsing ship as sections around them groaned and failed. Water rose to their ankles, then their knees as they climbed toward the upper levels. Marcus's ship's guidance system led them through the twisting passages. Behind them, they could hear the roar of collapsing bulkheads and the rush of water flooding the ship's lower sections. The dragon moved with increasing strength as adrenaline overcame its weakness. They reached the docking bay just as a massive support beam crashed down behind them. Marcus sealed the airlock as his ship automatically began disconnection procedures. Through the viewport, he watched the alien vessel disappear into the nebula's crushing depths, carrying its secrets to destruction. In his ship's cargo bay, Paraxis coiled its serpentine body and fixed Marcus with eyes that glowed like stars. The dragon's presence filled his mind again, not with words but with a feeling of profound gratitude and something deeper. A bond had been forged in those desperate moments, a connection between two beings who had defied death together. Marcus set course for his workshop, wondering how he was going to explain his new companion to the rest of the galaxy. But as he looked back at the dragon, he realized that his life as a simple mechanic had just become something far more extraordinary. The journey back to Marcus's workshop took 3 days through hyperspace, and during that time he learned that caring for a dragon presented unique challenges. Paraxis was too large for the ship's passenger quarters, so the cargo bay became a makeshift living space. The dragon seemed comfortable enough, coiling in the center of the bay and watching Marcus work with eyes that never seemed to close. Communication proved easier than expected. The telepathic connection they'd formed during the rescue had strengthened, allowing them to share basic concepts and emotions. Paraxis couldn't speak human languages, but it could project images and feelings directly into Marcus's mind. The dragon showed him glimpses of its homeworld, a place of floating islands and crystal cities where its kind had lived for millennia, before the Zephyrian warfleet arrived. Marcus shared his own memories in return, images of Earth and the colonies where humans had spread across the galaxy. He showed Paraxis how he'd learned to fix machines as a child, working alongside his father in the shipyards of New Detroit. The dragon seemed fascinated by human ingenuity, particularly their ability to repair and improve technology that others considered irreparable. When they finally reached Marcus's workshop on the mining station Meridian 7, the dock workers' reaction was exactly what he'd expected. Panic, screaming, and several people diving for cover behind cargo containers. The station's security chief, Elena Vasquez, arrived within minutes with a full tactical team. "Marcus, what the hell is that thing?" Elena demanded through the ship's communication system. Her voice carried the tone of someone trying very hard not to shoot first and ask questions later. "Her name is Paraxis," Marcus replied calmly as he lowered the cargo bay ramp. "She's a refugee. The Zephyrians had her imprisoned." The dragon emerged slowly, keeping her head low in what Marcus somehow understood was a gesture of non-aggression. Paraxis's scales had settled into a deep blue color, which the mental connection told him indicated calm alertness. The security team raised their weapons anyway. "Everyone stay calm," Marcus said, stepping between the guns and the dragon. "She's not hostile. She's actually quite intelligent." Elena's expression shifted from fear to professional skepticism. "Intelligent? Marcus, that's a 40-foot lizard with teeth the size of my arm." "She understands every word you're saying," Marcus replied. As if to prove his point, Paraxis turned her massive head toward Elena and made a sound that was almost like a chuckle. The standoff lasted for tense minutes, until Station Administrator Chen Wei arrived. The elderly man had run Meridian 7 for 20 years and had seen enough strange things to keep an open mind. He studied the dragon carefully before addressing Marcus. "Can you vouch for this creature's behavior?" Chen asked. "With my life," Marcus replied without hesitation. Chen nodded slowly. "Then she can stay, but she's your responsibility. Any problems and she's gone." Word of the dragon's arrival spread quickly through the station. Within hours, crowds gathered outside Marcus's workshop bay, pressing against the reinforced windows to catch a glimpse of Paraxis. The dragon handled the attention with surprising grace, occasionally moving close to the windows so children could see her better. Marcus discovered that Paraxis was a quick learner when it came to human technology. She watched intently as he worked on various repair jobs, her mental presence curious and analytical. When he was struggling with a particularly stubborn power coupling, the dragon projected an image showing the internal mechanism from a perspective Marcus couldn't achieve with his tools. Following her guidance, Marcus approached the repair differently and solved the problem in minutes rather than hours. It was the beginning of a partnership that would revolutionize how he approached engineering challenges. The dragon's presence also attracted unexpected visitors to the workshop. Dr. Sarah Kim, a xenobiologist from the University on New Earth, arrived within a week requesting permission to study Pyraxis. The scientist was fascinated by the dragon's apparent technological intuition and wanted to understand how her mind worked. Her neural structure is unlike anything in our databases, Dr. Kim explained after conducting non-invasive scans with Pyraxis's permission. The regions associated with spatial reasoning and pattern recognition are enormously developed. She can visualize complex three-dimensional relationships in ways that would require supercomputers for humans to achieve. This revelation explained why the Zephyrians had wanted to use Pyraxis as a living navigation system. Her mind could calculate hyperspace jumps with an intuitive understanding that artificial intelligence couldn't match. Marcus began incorporating the dragon's insights into his work, and soon his reputation as a master mechanic spread beyond the outer rim. Ship captains would travel for weeks to reach Meridian 7, knowing that Marcus and his unusual partner could solve problems that stumped entire engineering teams. The partnership faced its first real test when Captain Torres arrived with a damaged exploration vessel. His ship had been attacked by pirates near the Phantom sector, and the damage to his hyperspace drive was beyond conventional repair. The pirates had used some kind of exotic weapon that had twisted the drive's crystalline matrix into an impossible configuration. 5 different engineers have looked at it, Torres explained. They all say the same thing: the ship's a total loss. Marcus studied the damage with Pyraxis's mental presence guiding his perception. The dragon could see the quantum-level distortions that human instruments could barely detect. Together, they developed a repair approach that involved carefully retuning the crystal matrix using harmonic frequencies that Pyraxis generated through her own bioelectric field. The repair took 6 hours of delicate work, with Marcus making microscopic adjustments while Pyraxis provided the precise energy frequencies needed to realign the quantum structure. When they finished, the hyperspace drive was functioning better than it had when the ship was new. Captain Torres paid Marcus enough credits to upgrade his entire workshop. But more importantly, word of the impossible repair reached the Galactic Trade Federation. Within days, Marcus received an official communication offering him a position as chief engineer for their entire fleet. He turned them down, of course. His place was here on Meridian 7 with Pyraxis, solving impossible problems and helping travelers in need. But the dragon had other ideas. Through their mental link, Pyraxis showed him images of the Zephyrian war fleet still rampaging through the outer sectors. The same aliens who had imprisoned her were enslaving entire populations and destroying worlds that resisted their expansion. She wanted to fight back, and she wanted Marcus to help her do it. The dragon projected memories of her homeworld's destruction, the crystal cities burning as Zephyrian ships bombarded them from orbit. Her people had been peaceful, using their natural abilities for exploration and trade rather than warfare. The Zephyrians had seen this as weakness and exploited it. Marcus felt the dragon's pain and anger through their connection, but also her determination. Pyraxis wasn't just seeking revenge. She wanted to prevent other worlds from suffering the same fate, and she believed that human ingenuity combined with her natural abilities could make a difference in the war. That night, as Marcus lay in his bunk listening to the gentle sounds of Pyraxis breathing in the workshop below, he made his decision. Tomorrow he would start preparing for war. Preparing for war required modifications that pushed Marcus's engineering skills to their absolute limits. His workshop became a hive of activity as he designed and built equipment that could accommodate both human technology and dragon physiology. The challenge wasn't just creating weapons, but developing systems that would allow him and Pyraxis to fight as a unified force. The first breakthrough came when Marcus realized he could adapt his ship's neural interface technology to create a direct link with Pyraxis's bioelectric field. Working together over several weeks, they developed a harness system that would allow the Dragon to interface directly with spacecraft systems while still maintaining her freedom of movement. The harness itself was a marvel of engineering, woven from memory metal fibers that could expand and contract with Paraxis's breathing while maintaining structural integrity. Embedded throughout were thousands of microprocessors that translated the Dragon's neural patterns into commands that human technology could understand. Testing the system proved both exciting and terrifying. When Paraxis first linked with Marcus's ship through the harness, the vessel's performance increased dramatically. The Dragon's spatial awareness enhanced the navigation systems beyond anything previously thought possible, while her ability to perceive energy patterns allowed for more efficient power distribution throughout the ship. But the real revelation came when they tested the weapon systems. Paraxis could channel her own bioelectric energy through the ship's plasma cannons, increasing their power output by nearly 300%. The Dragon's natural fire-breathing ability translated into devastating energy beams that could punch through. Military-grade armor plating, Marcus, also began developing new tactics that took advantage of their unique partnership. Traditional space combat relied on formations and predictable movement patterns, but Paraxis could maneuver in ways that defied conventional physics. She could sense gravitational fields and energy currents that human pilots couldn't detect, allowing for impossible evasive maneuvers and attack angles. Word of their preparations reached Elena Vasquez, who had become increasingly concerned about Marcus's activities. The security chief confronted him one evening as he worked late in the workshop. "You're planning something dangerous," Elena said, watching Paraxis test the new harness system. "This isn't just about repairs anymore." Marcus looked up from his workbench, tools still in hand. "The Zephyrians destroyed her homeworld, Elena. They're still out there conquering and enslaving entire systems. Someone needs to stop them. And you think one mechanic and a dragon can make a difference against an entire warfleet?" Elena's voice carried genuine concern for her friend. "We won't be alone," Marcus replied. "There are resistance cells scattered throughout the outer rim. They just need someone to show them that the Zephyrians can be beaten." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent transmission from the station's communication array. A distress call was coming from the Proxima Mining Collective, 3 systems away. Zephyrian raiders had attacked the mining platforms and were systematically destroying the orbital facilities. The transmission crackled with static and desperation. "This is Platform 7. We're under attack by unknown alien vessels. They're not responding to any communication attempts. 17 platforms have already been destroyed. We have thousands of civilians trapped. Anyone receiving this transmission, please help." Marcus and Paraxis exchanged a look that needed no telepathic connection to understand. This was their chance to test their new partnership in actual combat while helping people in desperate need. "We're not ready," Elena protested as Marcus began powering up his ship systems. "You've only tested the harness for a few hours." "Those people can't wait for us to finish testing," Marcus replied, already moving toward the ship. Paraxis followed, the new harness gleaming on her scaled form. The journey to the Proxima system took 18 hours through hyperspace, with Paraxis's enhanced navigation, allowing them to take routes that would normally be considered too dangerous. They emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system to find chaos. 3 Zephyrian battlecruisers hung in orbit around the gas giant where the mining platforms had been built. The alien ships were methodically destroying the orbital facilities while small transports fled toward the outer system. Bodies and debris drifted between the platforms, marking where escape attempts had been intercepted. Marcus felt rage building through his connection with Paraxis. The Dragon had seen this same scenario play out on her home world, and the memories of that destruction drove her fury to new heights. Her scales shifted to deep red, the color of combat readiness. "There," Marcus said, pointing to a cluster of civilian transports being herded by Zephyrian fighters. "We save the civilians first, then deal with the big ships." Their ship accelerated toward the fighters, moving with speed and precision that Marcus had never achieved before. Paraxis's spatial awareness allowed them to navigate through the debris field without slowing down, while her energy perception revealed the fighters' blind spots. The first Zephyrian pilot never saw them coming. Marcus's ship emerged from behind a destroyed platform and fired a concentrated burst from the enhanced plasma cannons. The beam, supercharged with Paraxis's bioelectric energy, punched completely through the fighter's shields and hull, destroying it instantly. The remaining fighters turned to engage them, but found themselves facing an opponent unlike anything they'd encountered. Paraxis could sense their targeting systems and predict their movements, allowing Marcus to evade their return fire while positioning for devastating counterattacks. Within minutes, the fighter squadron was destroyed, and the civilian transports were free to escape toward the outer system. But the battle was far from over. The 3 battle cruisers had detected their presence and were moving to intercept. Marcus activated the ship's communication system and broadcast on all frequencies. Zephyrian vessels, this is Marcus Reeves aboard the Tinker's Hope. You are attacking civilian targets in violation of galactic law. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The response came as a barrage of heavy plasma fire from all 3 cruisers. Marcus threw the ship into evasive maneuvers, relying on Paraxis's enhanced perception to thread between the energy beams. The dragon's mental presence guided his every move, creating a dance of destruction through space. Time to show them what Earth engineering can do, Marcus muttered, targeting the lead cruiser's reactor housing. The enhanced plasma cannon charged to maximum power, drawing energy not just from the ship's reactor but from Paraxis herself. The dragon's bioelectric field flowed through the weapon systems, creating a beam of pure destruction that lit up the darkness of space. The shot struck the Zephyrian cruiser's shields and kept going, burning through layers of defense like they were tissue paper. The beam penetrated the hull and struck the reactor core, causing a chain reaction that consumed the massive ship in seconds. The remaining 2 cruisers immediately changed tactics, trying to flank Marcus's ship while maintaining their bombardment. But Paraxis had already anticipated their movements, showing Marcus an escape route that took them through the gas giant's upper atmosphere. Flying through planetary atmosphere was impossible for most spacecraft, but Paraxis's ability to sense and manipulate gravitational fields allowed them to surf the planet's magnetic currents like a natural phenomenon. They emerged on the opposite side of the gas giant, perfectly positioned to attack the cruisers from behind. The second ship fell to a coordinated assault that combined Marcus's tactical thinking with Paraxis's raw power. The dragon channeled her energy through the ship's entire weapon array, creating a devastating broadside that overwhelmed the cruiser's defenses. The final Zephyrian ship tried to retreat, but Paraxis had locked onto its hyperspace signature. No matter which direction it turned, the dragon could predict its destination. Marcus pursued relentlessly, and when the cruiser finally tried to jump to hyperspace, they were waiting at the exit point. The last Zephyrian ship died in the cold vacuum between stars, its crew never understanding how a single small vessel had destroyed their entire battle group. Marcus and Paraxis returned to the Proxima system to find the surviving civilians celebrating their impossible rescue. As they docked with the main platform to assist with evacuation efforts, Marcus realized that their war against the Zephyrians had truly begun. They had proven that the alien invaders could be defeated, and word of this victory would spread throughout the galaxy. But he also knew that the Zephyrians would respond to this defeat with overwhelming force. The real test of their partnership was yet to come. News of the Proxima victory spread through the galaxy faster than Marcus had expected. Within a week, his communication array was flooded with messages from resistance cells, independent captains, and even some military officials who had gone rogue rather than surrender to Zephyrian occupation. Everyone wanted to know how one human and a dragon had destroyed an entire Zephyrian battle group. The most significant contact came from Commander Sarah Chen, a former Federation Navy officer who had been building an underground network since the Zephyrians began their expansion. Her message was brief but urgent. "Meet me at Haven Station in the neutral zone. We need to talk." Haven Station was a notorious hub for smugglers and refugees, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid where multiple governments' authority overlapped enough to create a legal gray area. It was exactly the kind of place where a resistance movement might take root, but also where enemies could easily hide. Marcus and Paraxis arrived at Haven to find the station buzzing with activity. The dragon's presence caused the usual commotion, but the station's diverse population adapted quickly. Pirates and smugglers had seen stranger things than a dragon, and many seemed more interested in the potential profit of Marcus's enhanced technology than in any threat Paraxis might pose. Commander Chen met them at the docking bay, and Marcus was surprised to find her accompanied by representatives from a dozen different worlds. There was Captain Reyna from the Tauxeti mining colonies, Dr. Voss from the research stations around Rigel, and even Admiral Petrov, who had disappeared after refusing orders to surrender the 7th Fleet to Zephyrian forces. "The galaxy is watching," Chen explained as they gathered in a shielded conference room. "Your victory at Proxima proved that the Zephyrians aren't invincible, but one battle doesn't win a war." Admiral Petrov leaned forward, his weathered face showing the strain of months in hiding. "We have ships scattered across 50 systems, but no way to coordinate attacks. The Zephyrians control all the major communication networks." "That's where your dragon comes in," Dr. Voss added, studying Paraxis with scientific fascination. "My research indicates that her species has natural quantum entanglement capabilities. She could potentially establish instantaneous communication links across galactic distances." Through their mental connection, Marcus felt Pyraxis's interest in the concept. The dragon projected images of her people's ancient communication networks, showing how they had maintained contact across their scattered territories without technological infrastructure. "It's possible," Marcus said, translating Pyraxis's mental response, "but it would require building specialized equipment that can interface with her bioquantum field." Over the following days, Haven Station transformed into a center of innovation and planning. Marcus worked with Dr. Voss and a team of brilliant engineers to develop the communication system, while Paraxis learned to work with other humans who didn't share the telepathic bond she had with Marcus. The dragon's presence had an unexpected effect on the Resistance members. Many of them had lost hope after months of defeats and retreats, but seeing the magnificent creature who had chosen to fight alongside humanity inspired them to believe that victory was possible. Captain Reyna summed up the feeling when she said, "If a dragon can trust a human enough to go to war beside him, maybe we have something the Zephyrians don't understand." The new communication network came online just as intelligence reports arrived about Zephyrian movements. The aliens were massing a massive fleet near the Vega system, apparently preparing for a major offensive against the remaining independent worlds. "They're planning to end the resistance once and for all," Admiral Petrov concluded after studying the reports. 50 dreadnoughts plus support vessels. It's the largest fleet anyone has seen." Marcus felt a chill of concern through his connection with Paraxis. The dragon had witnessed the destructive power of such fleets when they had destroyed her homeworld. But instead of fear, he sensed determination and strategic thinking from his partner. "We can't meet them head-on," Marcus said, "but we don't have to. Pyraxis has an idea." Through their mental link, the dragon shared her plan. The Zephyrian fleet would be massive but also unwieldy. Its size would make it dependent on precise coordination and communication. If that coordination could be disrupted, the fleet might become vulnerable to smaller, more agile forces. Working together, Marcus and Pyraxis developed a strategy that would require every ship in the Resistance fleet to work in perfect harmony. It was dangerous and complex, but it offered their only chance of stopping the Zephyrian offensive. The plan required Marcus and Pyraxis to infiltrate the Zephyrian fleet and plant a virus in their command network. The virus, designed using Pyraxis's understanding of the aliens' technology, would cause cascade failures in their coordination systems. "It's suicide," Commander Chen said bluntly when Marcus explained the plan. "You'd be flying directly into the heart of 50 dreadnoughts." "Not if we approach it correctly," Marcus replied. "Pyraxis can mask our energy signature to match Zephyrian frequencies. We'll look like one of their own ships until we're close enough to plant the virus. The deception would only work for a limited time, but it might be enough." While Marcus and Pyraxis created chaos within the fleet, the Resistance ships would attack from multiple directions, using the confusion to destroy as many vessels as possible before the Zephyrians could reorganize. Preparation for the mission revealed new depths to Marcus and Pyraxis's partnership. The dragon could not only interface with technology, but actually rewrite alien programming codes through direct neural contact. Her understanding of quantum mechanics allowed her to perceive and manipulate the mathematical foundations of computer systems. Marcus designed a specialized infiltration pod that would allow Pyraxis to physically connect with Zephyrian computer cores while protecting her from hostile security systems. The pod was a work of art, combining human engineering with biomechanical principles inspired by the dragon's own physiology. As the Resistance fleet prepared to move toward the Vega system, Marcus received an unexpected visitor. Elena Vasquez had traveled from Meridian 7 to find him. "You're really going to do this, aren't you?" she asked, watching Marcus make final adjustments to his ship's systems. "We have to," Marcus replied. "If the Zephyrians succeed here, they'll control half the galaxy within a year." Elena nodded slowly, then handed him a small device. "It's a beacon. If things go wrong, activate it. I've convinced the Federation Council to position a rescue fleet just outside the neutral zone. They won't officially support the Resistance, but they might be willing to extract survivors." The gesture touched Marcus deeply. Even if the Federation wouldn't openly join the fight, there were people within the government who understood what was at stake. That night, as the Resistance fleet prepared to depart Haven Station, Marcus and Paraxis spent time together in the ship's cargo bay. The dragon's mental presence was calm but focused, like a warrior preparing for battle. Through their connection, Paraxis shared memories of her people's last stand against the Zephyrians. Her kind had fought bravely, but had been overwhelmed by superior numbers and firepower. The dragon was determined that humanity would not suffer the same fate. Marcus projected his own memories in return, showing Paraxis the ingenuity and determination that had carried humanity from a single world to the stars. He shared images of human history, the countless times his species had faced impossible odds and found ways to survive and thrive. Together, they had become something greater than either could be alone. Human creativity and determination combined with draconic wisdom and power. It was a partnership that the Zephyrians had never encountered before, and Marcus intended to use that advantage to its fullest extent. As the Resistance fleet entered hyperspace, heading toward the decisive battle at Vega, Marcus felt a mixture of fear and anticipation. They were about to attempt something that had never been tried before, gambling everything on an untested strategy. But with Paraxis beside him, he felt ready for whatever challenges awaited them in the cold depths of space. Mechanical constellation. 50 massive dreadnoughts arranged in perfect formation with hundreds of support vessels filling the gaps between them. Marcus had never seen so much concentrated firepower in one place, and the sight made his hands shake slightly on the ship's controls. Through their mental connection, Paraxis projected calm confidence into his mind. The dragon had studied the fleet's formation during their approach and identified weaknesses in their positioning. The Zephyrians were so confident in their overwhelming superiority that they had prioritized intimidation over practical defense. "Energy signature modification online," Marcus reported quietly into his communicator. "Paraxis is masking our ship's emissions. We should read as a Zephyrian scout vessel on their sensors." The infiltration pod attached to his ship's hull contained enough of the virus to infect the entire fleet's command network, but they would need to get within 50 meters of the flagship's communication array to upload it successfully. That meant flying through the heart of the enemy formation. "Dragon Lead, this is Resistance Command," came Admiral Petrov's voice through the quantum communication link. "You are cleared for infiltration approach. All units standing by for your signal." Marcus guided his ship toward the Zephyrian formation, relying entirely on Paraxis's ability to maintain their false energy signature. The dragon's bioelectric field fluctuated constantly, mimicking the quantum resonance patterns of alien technology. It was exhausting work that required her complete concentration. As they approached the outer perimeter, Marcus felt sweat beading on his forehead despite the ship's climate control. A single scanning beam from the wrong sensor array would reveal their deception and bring the entire fleet down on them. But Paraxis had studied Zephyrian technology extensively, and her understanding of their sensor frequencies was precise. They passed through the first defensive line without incident, slipping between two massive battle cruisers that could have reduced their ship to atoms with a single volley. Marcus forced himself to maintain steady course and speed, knowing that any deviation from standard Zephyrian flight patterns would trigger suspicion. The flagship loomed ahead, a behemoth that dwarfed even the other dreadnoughts. The vessel was nearly 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could crack planets and armor thick enough to withstand direct stellar radiation. But Marcus wasn't looking at its defenses. He was focused on the delicate communication arrays that jutted from its hull like metallic flowers. Approaching upload position, Marcus whispered into his communicator. "Paraxis is preparing for neural interface." The dragon shifted in the cargo bay, her consciousness splitting between maintaining their disguise and preparing to jack directly into alien computer systems. Through their connection, Marcus felt the strain this double effort was placing on her. But Pyraxis pushed forward with determination that amazed him. They reached the optimal position and Marcus activated the infiltration pod. The device detached from his ship's hull and drifted toward the flagship's communication array, guided by microthrusters and Pyraxis's precise control. To any observer, it would look like routine maintenance debris. The pod made contact with the array and Pyraxis's consciousness dove into the Zephyrian network. Marcus felt the dragon's mind recoil as she encountered the alien computer architecture, a twisted logic that operated on principles fundamentally different from human technology. But Pyraxis adapted quickly, using her quantum perception to navigate the digital landscape. Through their connection, Marcus experienced fragments of what Pyraxis was seeing inside the network. Data streams flowed like rivers of light, carrying communications between the fleet's ships. Security protocols prowled the system like digital predators, hunting for unauthorized intrusions. And beneath it all, the central command algorithm that coordinated 50 dreadnoughts with mechanical precision. Pyraxis found the upload point and began introducing the virus into the command network. But as the malicious code spread through the system, alarms began to trigger. The Zephyrians had detected the intrusion. "Dragon Lead, you've got multiple contacts converging on your position," came Admiral Petrov's urgent voice. 6 fighters closing fast from your starboard side. Marcus saw them on his sensors, Zephyrian interceptors that had broken formation to investigate the suspicious ship near their flagship. Their weapons were powering up, and in seconds they would be close enough to scan through Pyraxis's energy masking. "Upload progress?" Marcus asked through their mental link. Pyraxis's response came as a flood of images showing the virus spreading through the network like wildfire. She had infected 30% of the fleet's command systems, but needed at least 60% for the plan to work. The Dragon needed more time, but time was the one thing they didn't have. The lead interceptor fired a scanning beam that swept across Marcus's ship. For a moment, Pyraxis's disguise held, but the sustained scan was too intense. The energy masking began to fluctuate, revealing glimpses of human technology beneath the false Zephyrian signatures. "They're through our disguise," Marcus reported, beginning evasive maneuvers. He threw the ship into a spiraling dive that took them under the flagship's massive hull, using the dreadnought's own bulk as cover from the pursuing interceptors. But more fighters were launching from nearby vessels, and soon they would be surrounded. Through their connection, Marcus felt Pyraxis pushing herself to her absolute limits. The Dragon was maintaining the virus upload while simultaneously helping him navigate through the increasingly chaotic space around the flagship. Her consciousness was stretched across multiple tasks, each one requiring total concentration. The virus reached 50% penetration of the fleet's network, then 55%. Pyraxis was almost there, but the interceptors were closing in from multiple directions. Marcus could see plasma charges building in their weapons, preparing to reduce his ship to scrap metal. At 60% network penetration, Pyraxis triggered the virus's activation sequence. Across the Zephyrian fleet, command systems began failing in cascade patterns. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly found themselves on collision courses with their neighbors. Communication channels dissolved into static as the virus corrupted data transmission protocols. "Now," Marcus shouted into his communicator. "Execute Dragon Strike." The Resistance fleet dropped out of hyperspace at coordinates throughout the Vega system, appearing simultaneously from 6 different directions. The Zephyrians tried to respond to the multi-vector attack, but their command structure was collapsing. Ships received contradictory orders or no orders at all as the virus spread through their networks. Marcus and Pyraxis fought their way clear of the flagship's vicinity as the great vessel's weapon systems began firing randomly, unable to distinguish between friendly and hostile targets. The Dragon's infiltration pod had done its work and separated from the communication array, but not before Zephyrian security systems had traced the intrusion back to their ship. A full squadron of interceptors was now pursuing them through the chaos of the disintegrating formation. Marcus pushed his ship's engines to maximum, relying on Pyraxis's spatial awareness to navigate between the massive dreadnoughts that were spinning out of control. Behind them, the Resistance fleet was wreaking havoc on the confused Zephyrians. Admiral Petrov's heavy cruisers struck at the command vessels while Captain Reyna's fast attack ships darted between the dreadnoughts like wolves among sheep. The Zephyrians had overwhelming firepower, but without coordination, they couldn't bring it to bear effectively. Marcus's ship shuddered as plasma fire from the pursuing interceptors scored hits on his rear shields. The energy barriers were holding, but not for long against sustained bombardment. He needed to lose his pursuers before they could disable his engines. "Pyraxis, I need a miracle," he said aloud. The dragon's response came as a surge of energy through their connection. Pyraxis channeled her bioelectric field into the ship's weapon systems, supercharging the plasma cannons beyond their normal output. Marcus rolled the ship and fired a devastating barrage that destroyed 2 of the pursuing interceptors and damaged a third. But more enemies were closing in, and Marcus realized they were being herded toward one of the still functional dreadnoughts. The massive vessel's main batteries were tracking their movement, preparing to eliminate the source of the network intrusion with overwhelming firepower. The situation looked hopeless until Marcus spotted something on his sensors that made him smile. Dr. Voss's research ship had appeared at the edge of the battle, and the scientist was broadcasting a message on quantum frequencies that only Pyraxis could detect. Through their mental connection, the dragon shared the message's content. Dr. Voss had modified his ship's communication array to generate quantum interference patterns that would amplify Pyraxis's natural abilities. If they could rendezvous with the research vessel, the dragon would be able to extend her consciousness across the entire battle space. Marcus changed course toward Dr. Voss's ship, dodging between 2 colliding Zephyrian cruisers as their navigation systems failed simultaneously. The interceptors followed, but they were flying directly into a trap. As Marcus's ship linked with Dr. Voss's quantum amplification array, Pyraxis's awareness exploded outward across the E. The battle raged for 3 hours, and Marcus could feel Pyraxis weakening with each passing minute. The dragon's expanded consciousness was coordinating dozens of resistance ships across the entire Vega system, but the effort was consuming her life force at an alarming rate. Through their mental connection, he sensed her determination wavering as exhaustion crept into her thoughts. 23. Zephyrian dreadnoughts had been destroyed, their massive hulks drifting like dead titans through space. The resistance fleet had suffered losses too, but far fewer than anyone had dared hope. Admiral Petrov's flagship was badly damaged, and Captain Reyna's squadron was down to half strength. But they were winning. Then everything changed. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected, Dr. Voss reported from his research vessel. Massive energy readings incoming. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice as the reinforcement fleet dropped out of hyperspace. 40 more Zephyrian vessels, including a super dreadnought that was larger than anything previously encountered. The new arrivals were fresh, undamaged, and unaffected by the virus that had crippled the original fleet. "Dragon Lead, this is Admiral Petrov," came the weary voice through the communication array. "My fleet can't handle another engagement. We're battered and running low on ammunition." Through her expanded awareness, Pyraxis assessed the new threat with mechanical precision. The super dreadnought alone mounted enough firepower to destroy the entire resistance fleet. Its shields were powered by experimental fusion cores that made it nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. The smaller vessels accompanying it were equipped with adaptive countermeasures that would neutralize the virus if they attempted to use it again. Marcus felt despair creeping into his thoughts, but it was immediately overwhelmed by Pyraxis's fierce determination. The dragon projected images of her homeworld's destruction, reminding him of what was at stake. She had not come this far to surrender now. "All resistance vessels, this is Dragon Lead," Marcus broadcast on all frequencies. "Fall back to Rally Point Sigma. We'll cover your withdrawal." "Marcus, that's suicide," Commander Chen protested. "You can't take on 40 ships alone." "We won't be alone," Marcus replied, feeling Pyraxis's plan forming in their shared consciousness. "We have each other." The dragon's strategy was brilliant and terrifying in equal measure. She would use Dr. Voss's quantum amplification array to project her consciousness directly into the super dreadnought's core systems. But instead of simply uploading a virus, she would merge her own bio-quantum field with the ship's main reactor. The process would create a feedback cascade that would consume both the super dreadnought and Pyraxis herself. The resulting explosion would be powerful enough to destroy most of the reinforcement fleet, but it would cost the dragon her life. No. Marcus said aloud, his voice breaking. There has to be another way. Paraxis's mental response was gentle but firm. She showed him images of all the worlds that would fall if the Zephyrians weren't stopped here. Billions of beings would suffer the same fate as her people. Her sacrifice would save countless lives and give the galaxy a chance for peace. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face as he understood the depth of his partner's courage. But he refused to accept that her death was inevitable. They had achieved impossible things together. Surely they could find another solution. As the super dreadnought moved to engage the retreating resistance fleet, Marcus made a desperate decision. Instead of following Paraxis's plan, he would modify it. The dragon could still merge her consciousness with the enemy reactor, but Marcus would link his own mind to hers, sharing the burden and perhaps finding a way for both of them to survive. "You don't understand," Marcus said to Dr. Voss as he explained the modification. "The neural feedback will kill you too," the scientist protested. "Maybe," Marcus replied, already activating the deeper connection protocols they had developed. "But Paraxis is stronger when we're linked. Together, we might be able to control the cascade instead of just triggering it." The super dreadnought's main batteries opened fire on Admiral Petrov's retreating ships, its massive plasma beams carving through space with devastating precision. One of the resistance cruisers took a direct hit and exploded in a flash of white-hot debris. They were running out of time. Marcus flew his ship directly toward the enemy flagship, relying on Paraxis's expanded awareness to navigate through the defensive fire. The dragon's consciousness was already reaching out toward the super dreadnought, probing its shields and searching for a way through its defenses. "Marcus, what are you doing?" Elena's voice came through the emergency channel. Somehow the security chief had convinced the Federation rescue fleet to monitor the battle. "What I have to," Marcus replied, feeling Paraxis's consciousness merge more deeply with his own than ever before. The connection was overwhelming. Marcus felt his individual identity dissolving as his mind linked with the dragon's vast intelligence. For a moment he experienced the universe through her perception, seeing energy patterns and quantum fluctuations that human senses could never detect. Together, their merged consciousness pierced the super dreadnought's shields and invaded its core systems. The ship's security protocols tried to repel them, but the combined power of human creativity and draconic wisdom was too complex for the artificial defenses to understand. They reached the reactor core just as the super dreadnought fired another devastating volley at the resistance fleet. Marcus felt Paraxis's fury at the destruction and channeled it into their assault on the enemy systems. Instead of simply creating a cascade failure, they began rewriting the reactor's fundamental operating parameters. The fusion core was designed to convert matter to energy at carefully controlled rates. But Marcus and Paraxis turned it into something else entirely. Using principles that neither humans nor Zephyrians had discovered, they transformed the reactor into a quantum resonance chamber. The device began generating standing waves that propagated through hyperspace itself, creating interference patterns that disrupted faster than light travel. The effect was immediate and devastating. Every Zephyrian ship in the system found its hyperspace drives disabled, trapping them in normal space where they could be destroyed by conventional weapons. But more importantly, the resonance waves were spreading beyond the Vega system, creating an expanding bubble of disrupted spacetime. Any Zephyrian vessel caught in the effect would be stranded wherever it happened to be when the wave reached it. Their vast empire, dependent on rapid movement between star systems, would be paralyzed. "It's working," Dr. Voss reported in amazement. "The quantum cascade is self-sustaining. It'll keep expanding until it covers half the galaxy." But the effort was killing both Marcus and Paraxis. The strain of controlling forces that operated on cosmic scales was more than any living being should be able to endure. Marcus felt his consciousness fragmenting as the feedback from the modified reactor overwhelmed his neural pathways. Through their connection, he sensed Paraxis facing the same crisis. The dragon's bio-quantum field was burning out. Unable to channel the massive energies they had unleashed, they had perhaps minutes before the feedback destroyed them both. "Hold on," Marcus whispered, though he wasn't sure if he was speaking to Paraxis or to himself. The dragon's response came as a surge of love and gratitude that filled Marcus's failing consciousness. In their shared mental space, Paraxis showed him all the moments they had shared. From their first meeting in the crashed Zephyrian ship to this final battle among the stars. She also showed him something else, a way they might both survive. The quantum resonance they had created was self-sustaining, but it still needed a control mechanism to prevent it from expanding indefinitely. If they could transform themselves into living focal points for the effect, they might be able to survive while maintaining control over the cosmic forces they had unleashed. It would mean abandoning their physical forms and existing as pure consciousness within the quantum field. But they would be together, and they would be able to protect the galaxy from future threats. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Together?" he asked through their mental link. "Always," Paraxis replied. As their physical bodies dissolved into quantum energy, Marcus felt his consciousness merging completely with Paraxis's. They became something new, a hybrid intelligence that existed in the spaces between reality's fabric. Around them, the super dreadnought and its escort fleet disintegrated as the modified reactor finally overloaded. The resistance fleet watched, in awe as a pillar of light erupted from the dying super dreadnought and spread across the star system. When the light faded, the Zephyrian reinforcement fleet was gone, and space itself seemed to shimmer with new possibilities. "Dragon Lead, respond," Admiral Petrov called into the sudden silence. The answer came not through technology but as a whisper in the minds of every being in the system. Marcus and Paraxis still existed, transformed but undiminished, guardians of the quantum cascade that would protect the galaxy from tyranny. The war against the Zephyrians was over, but the legend of the human mechanic and his dragon partner had just begun. 6 months after the Battle of Vega, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The quantum cascade that Marcus and Paraxis had created continued to expand through hyperspace, creating zones where traditional faster-than-light travel was impossible. The Zephyrian Empire, dependent on rapid fleet movements to maintain control over their conquered territories, had collapsed almost overnight. Entire star systems that had suffered under alien occupation were suddenly free, their oppressors stranded light-years away from their supply lines and reinforcements. The resistance cells that had fought so desperately for survival found themselves inheriting the infrastructure of a galactic empire. Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Federation starship Tinker's Hope, watching construction crews work on the expanding Meridian 7 space station. The facility had grown from a simple mining outpost to the headquarters of the Galactic Liberation Council, where representatives from hundreds of worlds came to coordinate the massive reconstruction effort. "Still no direct contact?" asked Dr. Sarah Kim, joining Elena at the viewport. The xenobiologist had become the leading expert on the quantum cascade phenomenon, spending her days trying to understand the forces that Marcus and Paraxis had unleashed. "Not in the way we used to communicate," Elena replied, "but they're still out there. The navigation computers pick up guidance signals sometimes, especially when ships are in danger. And the engineers swear that their most difficult repairs sometimes solve themselves overnight." It was true. Throughout the galaxy, people reported strange incidents that could only be explained by the continued presence of Marcus and Paraxis. Ships with critical system failures would find their problems mysteriously resolved. Pirates and slavers discovered their vessels inexplicably disabled in the middle of empty space. Most remarkably, several Zephyrian commanders had surrendered their forces after experiencing vivid dreams of a burning world and the consequences of continuing their aggression. Admiral Petrov, now serving as the military coordinator for the Liberation Council, had compiled hundreds of such reports. "They're watching over us," he said during the weekly briefing sessions. "Different than before, but still protecting people who need help." The transformation hadn't been without challenges. The quantum cascade zones made traditional interstellar commerce difficult, forcing the development of new technologies and trade routes. Some worlds found themselves isolated for months at a time, dependent on sublight travel or dangerous jumps through unstable space. But these difficulties paled compared to the benefits of freedom from Zephyrian tyranny. Worlds that had been strip-mined for resources began healing their ecosystems. Enslaved populations rebuilt their civilizations, and the technologies salvaged from abandoned Zephyrian installations were being reverse-engineered to benefit everyone rather than just conquering armies. Commander Sarah Chen, now serving as the civilian coordinator for reconstruction efforts, often reflected on how quickly everything had changed. A year ago, we were hiding in asteroid fields and hoping to survive another day, she told the gathered delegates during a council session. Now we're rebuilding an entire galaxy. The council meetings took place in what had once been Marcus's workshop, expanded and converted into a memorial and meeting space. Paraxis's harness, the mechanical marvel that had allowed dragon and human to fight as one, was displayed prominently alongside Marcus's tools and engineering diagrams. Children from dozens of worlds came to see the artifacts, listening wide-eyed as veterans of the Resistance told stories of the human mechanic who had freed a dragon and changed the course of galactic history. The tales grew in the telling, but the core truth remained. Sometimes the most unlikely partnerships could achieve impossible things. Dr. Voss had established a research institute dedicated to studying the quantum cascade and its implications for interstellar travel. His teams were developing new forms of faster-than-light communication that worked within the cascade zones, based on principles they had observed during the final battle. We're learning to work with the field rather than against it, Dr. Voss explained to a gathering of engineers and scientists. The cascade isn't just a barrier to traditional hyperspace travel. It's a new medium that we can use for instant communication across galactic distances. The breakthrough came when researchers realized that the quantum cascade carried traces of Marcus and Paraxis's consciousness, embedded in its structure like memories in crystal. By learning to interpret these patterns, they could access a vast database of technical knowledge and strategic insights. Young engineers found that their most creative solutions often came to them in dreams, as if someone was guiding their subconscious thoughts toward breakthroughs. Veterans of the Resistance reported feeling encouraged during their darkest moments, as if invisible friends were reminding them that their struggles had meaning. Captain Reyna, now leading exploration missions into former Zephyrian territory, had the clearest encounters with the transformed Guardians. During a dangerous rescue mission in a collapsing star system, her ship's navigation computer had displayed course corrections that no one had input. I could feel them there, she told Elena during a visit to Meridian 7. Not talking to us directly, but guiding us through the danger. It was like having the galaxy's best pilot, an engineer working together to keep us safe. The most remarkable discovery came when Dr. Kim's research team detected patterns in the quantum cascade that resembled dragon communication methods. The field itself had become a medium for Marcus and Paraxis to maintain contact with the physical universe, allowing them to continue their partnership on a cosmic scale. They're not gone, Dr. Kim announced during a breakthrough presentation. They've become part of the fundamental structure of space-time in this region. Every ship that travels safely through cascade zones, every impossible repair that fixes itself, every strategic insight that comes to Resistance leaders, that's Marcus and Paraxis, still working together to protect people. The implications were staggering. The quantum cascade zones were expanding slowly but steadily, and within a few decades they would cover most of the galaxy. Wherever the field reached, the principles that Marcus and Paraxis represented, cooperation, ingenuity, and the courage to stand up for others, would be literally woven into the fabric of reality. Elena often visited the memorial workshop in the evenings, when the station was quiet and the construction crews had finished their work. She would sit in Marcus's old chair and tell the empty air about the day's events, updating her absent friend on the progress of rebuilding efforts. Sometimes, she swore she could hear a faint response in the hum of the station's machinery, a sound that reminded her of Paraxis's gentle breathing. The environmental systems would adjust themselves to perfect comfort levels, and the lighting would dim to exactly the right level for relaxation. "You did it," she said during one of these evening visits. "The galaxy is free, and it's becoming something better than anyone imagined. People are working together instead of fighting. Technology is being used to help rather than harm. And everyone knows that if they're in real trouble, somewhere out there, a human and a dragon are watching over them." The memorial workshop had become a pilgrimage site for young engineers and pilots from across the galaxy. They came to study Marcus's tools and Paraxis's harness, hoping to understand the principles that had made their partnership so powerful. Many left with more than technical knowledge. They carried with them the understanding that true strength came not from superior weapons or technology, but from the willingness to trust someone different from yourself and fight together for something greater than either of you could achieve alone. As the galaxy continued to heal and grow, the legend of Marcus Reeves and Paraxis spread to even the most distant worlds. Their story became a cornerstone of the new civilization that emerged from the ashes of the Zephyrian Empire. Children learned about the human mechanic who saw a prisoner instead of a monster, and the dragon who chose to trust a stranger rather than surrender to despair. Engineers studied their technical innovations, but more importantly, leaders learned about the power of partnerships that transcended species and conventional thinking. The quantum cascade continued to expand, carrying with it the consciousness of two beings who had refused to accept that tyranny was inevitable. In a galaxy that had almost fallen to conquest and oppression, Marcus and Paraxis had become living proof that friendship, courage, and ingenuity could overcome any obstacle. And in the spaces between stars, where reality bent around the quantum fields they had created, a human mechanic and a dragon continued their eternal partnership, watching over the civilization they had died to protect and ensuring that freedom would never again be threatened by those who sought to rule through fear. The war was over, but the legend would live forever.